I started.
All right. Welcome everybody to Cooking with Chef Spidey. Today, as promised, we are going to be doing homemade pasta. Be sure to like and subscribe to Cooking with Chef Spidey's YouTube page. Appreciate all your fanfares and comments at the bottom would be great. Any kinds of questions you have, be more than happy to answer them. Like I said, today is going to be pretty simple. We're going to do this in two parts. The first part is we're going to make ourselves some homemade pasta. One of my favorite things to do. It's very simple, few ingredients involved. You got 4.5 cups of flour, all-purpose white flour, 4 eggs, a little bit of salt, a little bit of oil, and some water. The pasta itself, once we do get that to the point where we're happy with it, we do wrap it in the saran wrap, and from that point what we'll do is we'll let it sit in the fridge for about 15 to 20 minutes. That way you activate the gluten, you get a real nice heavier pasta that way. By not giving the time for the pasta to activate with the gluten, you'll find that the pasta becomes very stringy. It's not very easy to work with. So we'll make the pasta, we'll put it in the fridge, and then we'll come back after about a half an hour, and then we'll talk about what else we're making today. And the other part of this is going to be chicken artichoke pasta. So after the pasta's done, we've got it to where we want to go. We're going to make some, we're going to cube up some chicken, throw some artichokes in there. We have some minced garlic and some parsley, and we'll show you how to do that part of the cooking at that point. So for now, we're going to take the flour, and one of my favorite things to do is get your hands dirty. I'm a dirty chef, clean chef, but I like to make a mess with what I do. Ultimately, it's one of the best things to do because you get comfortable with an area. Don't be afraid to get your hands in there. Again, it's an easy process, but it does cause a little bit of muscle strain on your hands and arms and stuff too. So stretch out. Make sure that you wash your hands. That was the first thing I did before I started this. With everything going on in the world right now, hygiene is a super important situation. So with that being said, I am going to take this chicken that's raw. We're going to put it out off to the side right now. That way it just isn't in our way when we're trying to do what we're doing with this pasta. So first things first, take that 4.5 cups and we make a little area in the middle here. And we're going to crack our eggs right into the middle of this. Real simple. Cracking the eggs. I always found that by cracking eggs with one hand, there's like so much less chance to get any types of shells in it because it all just kind of stays together that way. So by doing the one hand technique, it's a lot easier to do. Now, this is kind of the hard part, but we're going to try and keep this liquid to the inside of this. While we're doing that, I am going to add just about a teaspoon of oil to it, okay? And you want to just start breaking it up, start adding that flour into it. It kind of gets messy here for a little while, but you'll see that once the flour and the egg activate and they all start getting together, it's a lot easier to work with. So for now, you just take this, get both hands in there, just start getting that flour in there, mixed up with the eggs, till it gets to a comfortable area where we can start mixing it together. Now this, again, this does take a little bit of time. The old ways of doing this is the best way of doing it. You can take all of this and put it into like a food processor to get that first part going, but it wouldn't be that much fun. So we're kind of trying to add a little bit of fun to what we're doing here and give something for family and friends and kids to do, you know, together. This is a great little project for your friends and family to do. It's nice to have people come over and say, hey, you know, we're making pasta from scratch today. Come on over and feel free to come and get your hands dirty. But you know, we're trying to isolate ourselves right now. So, you know, if I can show you how to do this so you can do this at home with your kids and your loved ones, it's a lot of fun to do. As you can see, it's starting to come together pretty good. Okay, now this is the part where we're going to add some water to this. I put about a half cup of water off to the side here. You shouldn't have to use all of that, but just kind of pour some water in there, bring it all together again, and just work that dough as well as you can. Like I said, this is a process, so get it worked in. You're really just trying to get all that moisture out and get the flour to absorb that moisture. Okay, so I'm going to add some more water to it now. You'll know when the pasta is at the right consistency. It's really just one of those, you have to feel it, you have to keep playing with it, keep getting it to move around and absorb into it. This 4.5 cups of flour should be completely all used once we get everything in. Again, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. It's kind of a dirty, messy job in the beginning. But all I'm doing now is I'm taking this and I'm pushing the pieces into the middle. Alright? Really just getting all that gluten to get activated throughout. And again, it's one of those processes. You'll be working at this for a while. But you are starting to see that this flour is starting to get into a more pliable dough. Go and add a little bit more water to this again. And the reason that you're adding just a little bit at a time is it can make a serious mess, and you don't want that dough to be so wet in the end that you went too far and you'll have to add more flour to it. And it kind of just changes the consistency, because then you're not adding more oil, you're not adding more eggs to it, you're really just adding more water. So you want to just keep going. And if it's sticky on the outsides, it means that it can still grab some of that flour that you've got on the table. Scrape it all in there. Really just start working it in. Now I usually suggest that once all of this flour has been absorbed into it, that you really knead this dough. And this is kneading, you're just kind of like pulling a piece in. So you got my thumb here, and I'm just holding the product down, and we're folding in and pushing down. Folding in and pushing down. And like a circular motion, I'm kind of going clockwise with it. You really just want to keep going with that dough for about 10 minutes or so. Really, it takes about that long for dough to get to the point where you want it to be. So all that flour is getting activated into or all the dough's being activated. You can see that it's getting to the point now where we're really kind of at a ball. And the greatest thing about this is that you kind of can't go wrong in this stage. So, knead it all through. Keep going with the kneading. And like I said, 10 minutes of this is a great exercise, great arm workout. And you're making yourself some absolutely delicious pasta when it's done. Nothing like the stuff you buy from the stores. Can't even compare. Okay, so after kneading it for a total of about 10 minutes, what I've done is I've cleaned up my workspace a little bit, and I put down a piece of plastic wrap. We have this great ball of dough here. We're going to cover it up, just like this, and we're going to let this sit in the fridge for about a half an hour. And again, the reason why we do that is so that you activate the gluten in it, allows it to relax a little bit, and it becomes a lot more pliable and easier to work with when it comes to the KitchenAid accessories. So we're going to put this in the refrigerator for half an hour, and we'll come back and then we'll start talking about how to actually use this type of machine and why we're doing what we're doing. Okay? Thanks. See you in a little bit. Okay, while the pasta is sitting in the refrigerator, let's do a little bit of prep work on the chicken. Right here I've got 3 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. What I like to do is, even though they come pretty well trimmed, you still do want to trim a little bit of these pieces of fat off of them too. So we'll put them right onto the cutting board, and we're going to take a real nice sharp knife and just come through and trim some of that fat off of the chicken. Okay. Good. This third piece has got a little bit more to it. We'll just come through and just cut that trim off. Great. These look like nice pieces of chicken breast too. Okay. We got that. Got our piece of the chicken fat. Throw it away. Wash our hands again. Even though we're going back into cooking with that chicken again, it's always important to wash your hands. So, now that we have the chicken breasts, what we can do now is we can cut these into smaller pieces, so bite-sized pieces, and we can put them off to the side. That way, when we're ready to have the pasta and the chicken all ready to go, we've got this prep work out of the way. So the way I like to do this is, with the chicken breast, I like to come right down the middle first, all right? Do one swift cut down the middle, and then I like to come back and, find those bite-sized pieces. Always remember to keep your hands and your fingers down and in so that that knife doesn't come back and cut you. Safety is important in the kitchen. I'm always working with tools that could potentially hurt you. So just make sure that you're comfortable enough and let the knife do the work. It's very easy for somebody to get hurt when you're messing around with sharp knives. So just take your time, be careful, find that spot, and there we go. Those are nice pieces of chicken there. Again, we'll come to right down the middle, cut this chicken breast, and then turn it on its side here. Just start making yourself some bite-sized pieces of chicken. Very easy. Go. All right, now that chicken's done, just take a bowl, put the chicken into the bowl. And what I like to do in this situation is, at this time, is put some salt and pepper in there and give it some time to kind of just marinate in a little bit of seasonings. I'm going to wash my hands one more time because I don't want to touch the salt and pepper that the chicken kind of gotten all over my hands. Try to avoid cross-contamination at all times. Good. Okay. So just some sea salt and some black peppercorn, freshly ground. These are great to buy at the store. They already come with the grinder already attached, and you're getting a good product. At least fresh that way. Then from this point, really, there's a couple things you can do. You can use your hands and you can mix everything up together, or you can get a spoon or a wooden paddle of some sort. Just kind of mix it around, making sure that all the chicken gets mixed in so that that salt and pepper get a chance to flavor the chicken pieces that we just cut up. And then what I'll do is I'll throw some saran wrap on this, plastic wrap, and I'll put this in the refrigerator too, so that we don't have to worry about our food being in a temperature danger zone for too long. It's super important to understand that there's bacteria that grows on everything, all types of food surfaces. Your food has a temperature danger zone. It goes from 41 degrees to 140 degrees. That is the area where bacteria grows the fastest. So while it's sitting out here in our 70 degree kitchen, bacteria is growing, it's feeding. So it's important to keep that into the refrigerator under 41 degrees to slow that process of bacteria. Now, on the other side of that, the reason that we cook foods up to a certain degree is so that we kill those bacteria, and that's how we don't become sick. So it's important that our chicken has to be at least 160 degrees. That's ultimately the cooking temp, 160, 165. It's important to get it up to that temperature, and the reason is so that all the bacteria does die as you're cooking this product and making things safe. You know, people are afraid of chicken because the bacteria can grow on it. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of fish. Don't be afraid of chicken. Just know what your temperature danger zones are. If you check down at the bottom, what I'll do is in the comments below, I'll put on ultimately the preferred cooking temperatures of chicken, fish, pork, beef. That way, you guys kind of have an idea of like, okay, well, if I'm going to use a thermometer, I have to make sure that my food gets to a certain temperature, and I'll post those down below in the comments. Okay. So for now, I'll put the plastic on this. We'll put it into the fridge, and then we'll get to the point where the pasta is ready. And when the pasta is ready, we'll start breaking down them into pieces and start rolling it out, and we'll have some fun with that. Okay. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Back now that our dough has sat in the refrigerator for about a half an hour. It's really easy. What we're going to do is from this point just take this out, and we're going to cut this into pieces so that you just work with a little bit at a time. Always kind of reserve yourself some flour for the side, and we're just going to sprinkle some flour on the table, that clean work surface. All right, put that on there, and we're going to cut this into quarters. So super easy to cut. Just be careful not to cut your countertops or your surfaces. Cut that into quarters. And while you're working with these extra pieces, it's important that if you're not going to work with these very fast, that you cover them with some sort of cover so that they don't dry out on the outside. So what we'll do is we'll get some plastic wrap again. Just cut a piece off here. Just cover them up so that they don't dry out. All right, so we've got our first piece of working dough here. And what I'm going to do, you don't have to have a rolling pin. This is a very easy part of the job here. Just push it down, make sure that you got some flour on both sides. Again, just throw some flour out there. Make sure that both sides are nice and dried out, and then kind of make it into a rectangular shape. And the reason why we do this with the rectangular shape is once this machine gets going, we're going to start out with a real open depth to it, and we're going to bring it through the machine, and then each time we're going to bring it from 1, which is really big, all the way down to probably somewhere around about a 6. It does go all the way down to 8, but that'll be entirely too thin at that point. So we're going to start it out as 1, and we're going to make sure that this is locked in place, okay? And then we're going to turn this on. By turning this on, what this does, if you want to get a look at from the top here, you've got the 2 rollers in the inside, and what I like to do is I like to throw a little bit of flour in them, okay? Keep your hands away from that at all times, and we're just going to take this dough and we're going to push it through, okay? Now I like to start out at 2, and as the dough gets as the dough gets thinner, you can kind of speed up the machine a little bit too. We'll go to like probably, I think maybe 2 might be the best for now until it gets a little bit thinner. And what we're doing here is we're creating this shape so that every time this goes through the machine, it'll go a little bit thinner than it was before. So now we're at a 1. We're going to move this over to a 2. We're just going to let it go into the machine. Fold it over. Keep your hands away from that because you can hurt yourself. Okay? And then from 1 to 2, look at how much nicer and thicker that, or thinner that looks. We're going to move it up to a 4. Okay? Again, make sure your product is dry. Just a little bit of flour on the outside each time, making sure that there's flour on the surface that you're working with. And we're going to take this, now that it's on 4, put it through here, and just lightly guide it through so that taking your time, as this gets thinner, it's going to get a little bit more delicate too. Alright? Okay? See how much longer that's gotten? A little bit more flour on top. We're going to go to our final number, and I think 6 will probably be where we need to be on this before we change attachments, and I'll show you that once we get to that point too. But here, you know, feeding it through, and you just want to be very careful with it because, again, it's going to start getting real thin as it goes through this machine. You don't want to go too fast with this either. You go too fast, you'll end up having a product that falls apart. Okay, so there's our first piece of dough where it needs to be. I'm pretty happy with that. So what we'll do is we'll turn off the machine right now. So 2 things you can do here is you can take all of this dough and you can put it on a plate or put it off to the side and get it to where all 4 pieces are that. Or for instructional purposes, what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece off now. Alright, put that off to the side. Then we're going to switch it over to the spaghetti. This one is spaghetti. The KitchenAid also comes with a fettuccine maker too, but for this time around we're going to do spaghetti. So then we make sure that it goes into the slot of this machine and then locks in right here. Alright, that's how you know that you're in the right spot. You take this bolt, put it down hand tight, and we're ready to go. So we're going to turn this back on. Alright, and as that's turning, we're going to get a little bit of flour into it again, because this is going to be the part that it starts getting kind of sticky. So it's important that you flour everything. Now what I like to do is I like to take the pasta at this point, because it's so long, I like to kind of find the middle of this long piece. Just cut a little slit in it. Again, be careful not to ruin your cooking surfaces or tables. And then we're just going to take this piece and we're going to put it in. Again, starting from that piece, just let it go through. Alright. Let that hang. Grab it from the other side as it's coming through. And you've got yourself some great fresh spaghetti. Now what I also like to do from this point is we need to make a little area that we can store this. So let's throw some flour down. Alright, turn that off, and just kind of give yourself a little nest. And there's your first set. Starting with the second one, and you'll just repeat what we just did throughout this. So the second piece here, I'm going to grab it, make sure that I got some flour on it. Alright, nice and dry. I'm going to just do this again. Again, taking that. Let the machine do the work. Go through. As that piece comes down, grab your hand on the other side of it and hold it. Perfect. And just make yourself a little nest. So we'll come back after this and I'll flatten all the pieces out. And we'll get them all set up on the table and we'll show you what to do from there with the boiling water. Okay? All the pasta done. I cleaned up the area a little bit, put a couple things away. It's always important to clean as you go. Nobody ever wants to have to clean everything up at the very end of cooking and everything too. So as you're working on it and you have time to do it, clean up as you go. We have a plate that we're going to use for plate setting once we're done with everything. But for now, with the pasta being done, let's come on over here. We're going to start working on cooking up some chicken. So we're going to turn the heat on. We're going to get just a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of the pan. Okay, enough to get the bottom of the pan there. We're going to take some of this cubed chicken that we have there, and we're going to wait for this to get hot. Once this gets hot enough, we're going to throw some chicken in there, and we'll start cooking this up. For now, just move the oil around, making sure that all the areas are covered for it. And then we're going to get some chicken, start putting it down. I don't want to do too much because ultimately what we're doing here is we're just going to do enough for a plate. That should be good for what we need to do for that. Once the chicken's down, I'm going to add a little bit of fresh garlic to it. Okay, just a little bit. There we go. A little bit of dried parsley. And we're going to let that cook down. It is important to know that chicken does need to be cooked completely. With small pieces of chicken, it's very easy to tell when chicken is done. So there's no need to pull a thermometer and check each one of the individual pieces of chicken. Because ultimately, once the chicken's completely cooked all the way through, then it'll be done. When you're cooking a full piece of chicken breast, or maybe you're cooking a rotisserie chicken with the bones in, it's a whole thing, then it's important that, like for a turkey and that type of stuff, that you do use a thermometer so that you know what your temperatures are. Obviously, when we're cooking smaller pieces of chicken like this, really what we're going to do in the end is we're just going to make sure that we'll cut them down the middle, make sure that the pieces of chicken are completely cooked all the way through. There's no pink, it's white, and that's when the chicken will be done. Some of the pieces that are bigger, like this one, will ultimately be our piece to determine when the chicken is done, because if this bigger piece is cooked, then the smaller ones are definitely going to be cooked. Also important to keep in mind that as you're cooking these, be careful that your heat's not too high so that you end up burning the outside of the chicken. But at the same time, you really want to get that nice brown on the outside of them. So we'll just keep going with this until that chicken's completely cooked all the way through. Once we hit that point where the chicken is done, we'll add the artichokes. We'll add a little bit more oil. Again, with the salt and pepper, we did add some salt and pepper in the beginning, but as the food's cooking, a little bit more salt, a little bit more pepper. Now, I got multiple types of salt and pepper here. I've got this fine ground, and then we also have the pepper from the grinder. So, whichever one you feel like using, really doesn't matter. It's up to you. This shouldn't take very long to cook. So, as that's still cooking, we'll give this a couple minutes here. You want to make sure that your water is on and you have a rapid boil to it. Also, I like to make sure that my pasta gets salted. You have to salt your pasta. You have to salt your water so that that salt can really kind of break down and get into the pasta that we're doing. So while this is cooking, we'll bring that water up to a boil. We have everything that we need to get it going from here. As soon as this is done, we will shut that down. We'll turn the heat down a little bit lower. We'll throw the artichokes in it. And then it's pretty much done. It's a really simple process. So this water just needs to get to a boil. Ultimately, what we're going to do then is we're going to take just one of these clusters here, this nice fresh pasta. We're going to take these and we're going to put them into the water. And pretty much a good serving for what we're going to be cooking here for. So probably 2 of these for a serving because I love pasta. All right. Back to the chicken. Make sure that the chicken is cooking. All right. As I break this chicken up, you're going to see that the insides of this chicken are done. All right. Just want to get it to the point where it's done because it is going to still sit in this heat. I'm starting to see some browning going on the outsides of the chicken. So it's just where we want it to be. While that's doing that, come over, we'll grab ourselves a little handful of artichokes. Now, ultimately, these are just artichokes in a can, some canned artichokes, hearts. We'll throw those in there. Give ourselves a little bit more oil. Maybe throw in just a little bit more fresh garlic in there. Everybody loves garlic. A little bit more. More parsley. Okay. Toss it a little bit. All right. This looks like it's just about ready to go. Got a slower burner in the back there. So what we'll do is bring this up to the bigger burner. Turn that on high. We'll get that water boiling fairly quickly. And then we'll do our pasta. The water boiling, rapid boil. We're going to take one piece of this pasta, just throw it right into the boiling water, and grab another cluster of pasta here. Just get it right into that boiling water. Now, because this is not like your regular pasta that you see, you know, the dried pasta. This is fresh pasta, so it doesn't take very long to cook. All right, I throw a little bit of olive oil into the water so that the pasta separates and stays apart from each other, so we don't just get one big old clump of pasta. While that's going, this chicken and artichokes done. Ultimately, we're just waiting for this pasta to boil. Once it does, about 2 minutes in the boiling water, and put it down into the colander that we have, and then we'll throw it right into the pasta. So there's a couple things you can do here. You can take this out and put it into the sink, okay, and rinse all the water off, all right? Or you can just take this pasta, and once you feel like it's gotten to that al dente, again, about 2 minutes or so, you can literally just take this pasta right out of here, okay, and put it right into the pan. I mean, if that's what you're making for a meal, you know, you're saving yourself some steps. So we're going to give this about 2 minutes, and once that's done, and it's gotten to the point where it's an al dente type of taste to it, we'll just move it directly over to the pasta, or the pan with the chicken and artichokes in it, and we'll be done. Okay, so the pasta's been boiling for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. I'm ready for what I want to do next. So, grab some oven mitts, turn off the water. Grab some oven mitts. These handles are going to be pretty hot. We're just going to bring it over here to the colander. Pour it in there. Alright. Get that water off of it. Alright, I like to just put it right back into the pan I was using before. And bring this over to the stove. Okay. Grab your pasta, however much you want to put in there. Be about right. And give it a shake. Start mixing that pasta in with all those flavors, the garlic and all that. At this point, I like to take just a little bit of butter. A little bit of salted butter. Get that in the pan. Has a nice flavor to it. Mix it all around, make sure that it's getting all that great flavor from the artichokes and the fresh garlic. Okay. Then take a little bit of Parmesan cheese. And this is totally up to you on how much cheese you want in it. I like to just put a little bit in there to kind of cover it. Mix it around. Okay, that's about where you want it, right there. All right, turn the oven off. All right, bring it over to the plate. A little bit of parsley over the top. And you have yourself chicken and artichoke pasta. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming through and really supporting me. I wanted to do something fun like this. It's something I'm really passionate about, and I love cooking. It's important that when you find something that you enjoy doing, you do it to the best of your abilities. I really feel like just doing something like this and reaching out to my friends and neighbors and family, just saying, hey, look, I appreciate what you do. Take a look and see what I do, and I have a really good time with it. So thank you again for watching, and I want to please remember to subscribe to our channel so that I can keep doing these videos. And it's important to just enjoy what you do every day. So until next time, Chef Spidey, thank you very much. Be safe and be great.